Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. I welcome everyone to today's webinar, that is quarantine webinars that we conduct on a fortnightly basis. Earlier, we were doing it weekly, so that is what I was just about to say by mistake. So today's webinar is on the topic charting the roadmap for culture transformation. So we have been joined by industry and HR leaders for this enterprising discussion. And I'm sure several HR professionals and leaders would have joined us today for this live webinar so that they can take cues and notes from the learnings, the observations, the insights that these subject matter experts can share with us when it comes, for the discussion on the topic of culture. So just a note to all the attendees on YouTube, we will be conducting a Q&A session towards the end of today's webinar. So if you have any questions for our speakers, please feel free to share them with us using the chat box on YouTube. Alternatively, you could send us an email with your questions. On your behalf, I will direct those questions to our speakers. We have in fact pre-received a couple of questions from our speakers, from our attendees, and I'm hoping that the attendees who've joined us for the live session will certainly bombard these speakers with many questions. So on that note, let's start with the webinar. With a brief introduction about Creating Values. Creating Values is an ISO certified management consulting firm. We provide strategic advisory services to organizations across industries. The domains in which we provide our advisory services include people and culture, which is our HR advisory arm. Technology and risk is our IT consulting arm. Business strategy consulting, brand strategy consulting, and executive search consulting. We have been operational for over 7 years in this industry, and during this duration, we have completed more than 225 projects. We have worked across more than 15 industries, and we are proud to have a repeat order rate as high as 90%, and that talks about the quality of our service delivery. If you have queries about any of our services, please feel free to get in touch with us. We will be happy to walk you through, what is it that we have to offer and how we can create synergies amongst our organizations. This is just an indicative list of the kind of services that we provide when it comes to people and culture consulting. And like I've mentioned, please feel free to get in touch with us. Just a reminder to all of our attendees about our next webinar, which will be conducted on 18th of December from 4 p.m. onwards. Like I mentioned, now we are doing these webinars every fortnight. So the next one is on 18th of December at 4 p.m. So please join us, wherein HR and business leaders will be talking about ushering the new age of talent management. So when 2021 is just around the corner, what is it with regards to talent management, the kind of best practices that companies are going to adopt? What is it that is currently that they are working on, and how 2021 will be different with regards to talent management? So please make a note of it, register for it, and join us again on 18th of December at 4 p.m. for this interesting webinar. So without further ado, let's start today's webinar, which is on the topic of charting the roadmap for culture transformation. And it is rightly said that culture eats strategy for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. As per a study by Tata Strategic Management Group, companies with strong strategy culture alignment reported 5% more profitability than companies with low strategy culture alignment. So the important question isn't whether organizations should invest in building a great culture. Rather, the question is where to start and how to champion the intangible and non-quantifiable nature of organizational culture. So we have with us Mr. Anirudh Singh, CHRO and COE at High-Tech Gears. With over 22 years of professional experience, he excels in managing people complexities for large global and Indian organizations. He lays focus on culture building, technology adoption, relationship and stakeholder management, systems thinking. He has acute understanding of creating agile processes, strategic initiatives such as mergers and acquisitions, global expansion, digitization, compliances, performance enhancement and engagement, and culture change, etc. These are just the few things that Mr. Anirudh excels at. Our next speaker is Mr. Amrendra Nath Mishra. He is the corporate head HR for Hero Corp. He possesses over 19 years of professional experience in multiple industries such as engineering, FMCG, automotive, telecom, etc. He has managed numerous facets of HR, including strategic HR, talent acquisition, compensation and benefits, performance management, IR, sales, and talent management. He's passionate about people and culture interventions, especially focusing on talent retention strategies, developing talent with leadership focus, succession planning, to name a few. Mr. Vivek Shastri has also joined us. He is the Associate Director at Creating Values. He comes with diversified professional experience involving business side interventions, including strategy development, OD and culture projects. He has led multiple complex assignments for organizations across healthcare, manufacturing, BFSI, FMCG, retail, building construction material, etc. He has been instrumental in driving strategic projects such as conducting culture assessment and designing culture transformation roadmap, delegation of authority, sales effectiveness, and strategy for various clients. It is my privilege to interact with these esteemed dignitaries and to moderate today's session. So I would request the speakers to now turn on their camera and to unmute themselves so that I can start directing some specific questions to our speakers. Okay, thank you, speakers. So my first question I would direct to Mr. Anirudh, and then we would go with the same question for the response from Mr. Amrendra. Mr. Anirudh, with a turbulent 2020, do you think 2021 will be the year wherein organizations will enhance their focus and their resources to strengthen their culture transformation journey?
Thank you, Sujata, for such an illustrious introduction. Good to hear all good things about me.
It is well deserved, sir.
For me, the cultural transformation is a continuous journey. It is not a one-time activity. Culture is a very dynamic concept, and it moves with the context and the time and the strategy. Culture is an ecosystem. It is bounded by purpose, values, and principles, and it reflects on all the dealings of the organizations. So if there is a right ecosystem which gives opportunity for a strategy to succeed, then only any strategy can succeed. If the culture, there is a misalignment between the culture and the strategy, as they say that the culture eats strategy on breakfast or dinner or supper, whatever, lunch. So it is very, very important that culture and strategy are aligned. It is a similar way as like, because I work for automobile industry, so I would like to quote an example from automobile, that if you have a car to drive, which is an organization, and there's a wheels which drives you in distances, if they are not aligned, what will happen? So the alignment is a continuous process, and you have to do it, keep it doing it periodically. It's a very static concept. Looking at the 2020, the post-pandemic things, which has affected all of us, and the whole context of the business is changing. In terms of supply chain, in terms of the way that we used to work, in terms of the offices, in terms of the interactions, social interaction, digital interactions are, visual interactions are increasingly, digitalization is increasing. So these are the things which are, forcing organizations to align their culture again. It's no more the same workplace. It is no more the same way of working. So there are certain challenges and there are certain opportunities. What opportunities I see is that your visual interactions are more efficient. Suppose I have to attend this workshop. Anyway, I don't go to many workshops, those workshops for networking, etc. But even if I was supposed to go, it would have taken a lot of time and hassles. Here, after just closing my office work, I'm able to attend this workshop. So it is improving the efficiency quotient. So it is an opportunity, not a challenge, I would say. The digitization is increasing continuously, but there are challenges also. Like there is an inner human need to be connected, to be in touch, to be supported, to be cared. That is something we all as HR folk have to find out, that how we can support those needs of human beings. So this is where I am, and I think the organizations have to put a lot of resources and have to enhance their focus to realign their organization culture to support the delivery models which are changing, the customer needs which are changing, supply chains, the way it used to be changing. They are more closer now with the organizations. So these are the things forcing organization to have enhanced focus towards the cultural change. Thank you, Sujata. I will pass out over to Amrendra. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Mr. Anirudh. In fact, rightly mentioned, there is a need for realignment. So it's not that organizations were not investing or were not focused towards culture, but the pandemic has shaken us in varied formats, especially the remote working format. Now we would have going forward, we'll have a hybrid workforce, which we cannot now deny, that's the reality, that we will have a hybrid workforce. And culture ultimately is what you want your organization to stand for, or you would want create a great employee experience, because the way you've mentioned that even the customers' expectations will get redefined. So internally for HR, employees are your customers, and obviously if you take care of your employees, they'll take care of your end customers. So this is the main area of work for organizations, and especially HR leaders like you now.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Amrendra, now the response from you for the same thing, that with the turbulent 2020, do you think 2021 will be the year wherein organizations will now focus more and invest better when it comes to strengthening their culture transformation journey? Mr. Amrendra, you're on mute.
Thank you, first of all, inviting me for this Cubinar. And I like the term called Cubinar. It's quarantine webinar. And I welcome all the attendees, Anirudh and Vivek. And thanks again for the introduction, which was, and really honored. The subject culture has always been a subject of discussion for ages now. And every organization talks about, and every organization is unique in the way they have their own culture. They say, very casually, it's our culture. It's not in our culture. Yeah. It has always been there. With this turbulent 2020, which is, we don't know whether it's going to stay for a longer period or it's going to be over by 2021. That's time will tell. But yes, it has opened our eyes. Nobody has the BCP, business continuity plan, for a pandemic. Everybody had for flood and for terrorism and all that, but nobody had the business continuity plan for pandemic. So what Anirudh has said, I will just supplement that. It is the opportunity. Culture is basically what? Culture is the dominant espoused values of the organization. Yeah, I want my people to behave this way. I want my person to work in this way. So it is irrespective of how I behave at home, which is my natural style, natural preference of working. So I laugh loudly at home, but I don't do that in office. Yeah. So I want, or the organization want people to acquire certain skills, certain behavioral norms. Yeah, those are cultures basically. It is the time, it is high time to redefine it. Now we need to redefine. Before we realign, we need to redefine, realign, and then manage. We need to define in this situation, what is the one factor which is going to drive the business? If that is the driving factor of the business, around it, what kind of culture I want? Yeah. We should also see the blind side of it. There could be certain things which are not working for us. Can we do away with that? So there will always be a positive side and the negative side. Can we do away with the negative side? Can we take the positive sides? So first of all, we need to evaluate our current culture. So it's called dipstick. That's the step number one. Step number 2, that you need to clarify your culture and the expectations from the employees. Yeah? So that there is a synergy, there is an understanding, okay, this is what we stand for and this is the way we need to head towards. We need to clarify to our employees, our people, what is expected out of you in this period. Yeah? Clearly mention that. We need to then align them that this is, it could be growth. So I'm not saying any one company can take one example like that. We want to grow. Despite pandemic or non-pandemic, we don't know anything. Somebody can say, no, for us, customer satisfaction is the paramount important thing. We need to take 1 or 2 examples, build around it. Second is engage with them. When it comes to aligning, engage with the team. The continuous dialogue. It is not only communication, it is communication, communication, and communication over communication. Now, what Anirudh saying, that we are not physically present. We have been used to working closely with each other, across the table and getting into altercations and coming to a consensus, but it is not happening now. You don't know what kind of situation is at home with the particular employee, whether he's in the right frame of mind or not. But when he comes to office, he behaves that way. But then if you are continuously communicating and engaging with the employee, during the pandemic, when it started, what we did in our Hero, we have multiple businesses, yeah, including steel, we have insurance, we have reality and all that. On one hand, we said, these are the business indicators we want to work. Okay. Our clear communication was on innovation. Whether you're sitting at home or in office, innovation doesn't stop because it only needs a creative mind, right? We enabled them with all IT infra. We said, you don't need to worry about. You will have everything to work from home as well. Yeah. We started many interactive activities just to keep them engaged. And the right time to engage was post lunch. Actually, people take it very easy, but these are the things I said to my colleagues. Don't start in the beginning, because in the morning, everybody is driving the number. Yeah? You need to find out times how to engage with the employees so that they also feel pepped up all the time. Nobody was used to working from home. And it was a strenuous exercise for employees as well. Somebody's child is crying, somebody's mother is not well. Pandemic itself was a great thing. How do you engage with people sitting in different locations for one single reason? That is your business goal. Communication plays a very important role. Engagement plays a very important role. And then we need to strengthen the review processes. Yeah. When you do the review process, it is said, what gets measured gets done. Yeah. So we also need to. Doesn't mean that, Jim Collins once said, a culture of discipline is not the principle of business, but it's a principle of greatness. So if somebody says review is something which is not being followed, I disagree. I said anything that you do has to be reviewed, because then you not only get feedback, but I am the strong proponent of giving the feed forward. Feedback is gone. I mean, you can talk about dead things, which has already been done, but how do we go forward? Because things are changing every day. And that's very important. We need to have a management system in place whereby we deal with all these kind of small things of redefining, realigning, and managing, which Anirudh said, it's a continuous process. We need to do it time and again. Maybe a period can be decided over 3 months, 6 months, I don't know. Depends on company to company. That's my view about how do we take care of our culture in turbulence time like this.
Thank you, Mr. Amrendra. In fact, rightly said, it is a continuous process because culture and values, they are never a destination, they are always a journey. Right. And especially because culture is very dynamic in nature. People join in, new people join in your organization. The seasoned and seasoned professionals, they might move out of your organization. The management changes. Government laws could change and have an impact on the business. There are several things. So that is why culture itself, although very subjective in nature at times, although very non-quantifiable at times, but is very dynamic in nature, keeps changing. That is why you should keep on redefining the goalpost every now and then. And what you've mentioned is bang on. Then that is where the reviews would come in handy in managing your culture journey, your culture transformation journey. Thank you, Mr. Amrendra. So I'll move to my next question quickly. We'll first go for the views of Mr. Anirudh, and then I will seek Mr. Vivek's inputs on this question. Mr. Anirudh, what do you foresee as the top 2 or 3 priorities when it comes to culture transformation at the start of at the start of 2021?
Look, as I mentioned in my previous comments, that the priorities for the culture alignment is now to ensure that the people connect is intact. How the people are feeling is still connected, socialized, the need of socialization is met. So now I see, probably these offices are going to be transformed into a club where people will come to the office, not for the work, but will come there to socialize. So this is the kind of things are moving ahead. Another thing is that the boundary between the work and the home is diminishing. So you are available 24/7, and you at 10 o'clock also you are having the call in the night, and in the morning 7 o'clock also. So that's the work-life balance is going to be in the office, but when you are being at home, what the whole concept of the leaves, what will happen? Casual leave, sick leave, earned leave. So these are the things changing very, very fast. So culture, these are the priorities the HR heads have to look at. That what about the leaves? What kind of the workplace I'm going to have? How I'm going to ensure the employee engagement? How I'm going to ensure that the people are still having the social connect? How I'm going to ensure that the values of the organization, purpose, values, and principles are, completely implemented, the people are practicing it. So how we are going to ensure and bind the force together, even when they are working from remotely. And also one of the things I'm looking at, the whole concept of being in one office is going to be diminishing. The pressure which is on, a lot of pressure is on there on the metro cities. People are coming from the B town, C town. So I think that those things are now going to be a lot of flexibility, that you can hire a person sitting in a B town, B class town or C class town and still be working for you. So these are the things. Now the challenge before the organizations as well as HR, because HR cannot work in isolation. It's about the organization. So is that how I can ensure the connectivity, the human touch? How can I ensure that the values are lived by the employees even when they are away from the organizations? While it is offering a lot of efficiency benefits for all of us, productivity is improving, but engagement and mental health is becoming a bigger issue. So, and what would be the concept of the leaves, etc.? These are the things I think we need to address, and these are the focus areas. If I look at the little bit, I want to talk about the organization culture in my context where I am working. Maybe little digression, but I call my organization a 33 years old startup. And Amrendra being, are one of the key customers, you would understand how the high-tech operate. So there is a problem in the morning, we solve it by evening. And we will run a lot of forums, club together. So everybody will come together, resolve a problem. And the digitization has empowered it like anything. Our efficiencies have increased like anything, which was probably more difficult. But now the MD is able to do 20 meetings in a day. I'm able to conduct 5 meetings. I'm able to conduct inside meeting and outside meeting also. The people we have are more agile, even from any startup you take. Now, in typical sense, I'm talking startup, but the people who have been with us 30 or 40 years within this organization still feel that excited. That's the culture. The job of managing director or the CHRO is, the primary job is to building culture of the organization. And I think whenever the context is changing, we have to take that role and ensure that the organization core values remain intact and the culture is aligned with the change of the context of the business and with the strategy. So I think the complete context is changed, and it is important for all of HR guys to ensure that how engagement is going to be here. What are some of the answers we have to that? What will be about offices? Offices will be for work or for social networking. So these are the things coming in my mind, and the HR has to align. Thank you very much. I'm done. Yeah.
Quite interesting things, Mr. Anirudh, that you've shared, but I'll kind of come to a summarization a little later. First, I want to hear the views of Mr. Vivek on the same. So, Mr. Vivek, what do you foresee as the top 2 or 3 priorities when it comes to culture transformation and right at the start of the year, that is for 2021?
Right. So I think it's a plain fact, Sujata, and I'm sure my esteemed HR leaders would also agree with the fact that the culture of an organization, more than the business strategy, ultimately determines the business growth and the way it transforms. Research and statistics are often scary, but here's what it is. That, there is a statistic which I recently read that it takes 7 years to transform a company's culture. And despite that sort of a stat, 70% of the initiatives fail to achieve their intent. Now, I think there are multiple interventions which are planned by organizations and great, wonderful things are done. But for me, if you ask me the top priorities at the outset of the year, that would be the basics. So, communication. That's something Mr. Amrendra also talked about in terms of, the 3 C's rather, which is, over communicating. So I would say along with that, opening more channels for communication, having a two-way communication. It's not that Elon Musk was joking when he said that, don't hesitate communicating, even if it means, communicating with your boss's boss, so don't hesitate doing that. So making sure how the managers understand and, need to communicate openly and regularly. Second, I would say is, trust building. That is something, especially in these times of in the entire the way 2020 has been, it is very critical for organizations that, the trust factor gets built up. And that is where the management's visibility is also very critical, because they are ultimately need to be seen as change drivers. And that, that they are there with the employees in the longer run. So I would say that would be one of the other priority. Thirdly, with, of course, digital getting a bigger push these days, thanks to, the sort of virtual context which we live in. So leveraging technology and bringing in more amount of transparency, we all talk about, facts that transparency is essential. And, there have been multitude of books which might have been written about it. But on the ground, is it really visible? And digital would be the biggest way in which, you can push that across. And couple of other factors, I would say, if you are able to show an individual, regardless of the position or role which he is in terms of what is the purpose of his job, what is it that he brings onto the role, how is it that he is going to, how is it that his presence impacts the organization, that is what is something which is very critical. And lastly, but not the least, and I guess firms would also have to move towards an individualized development, because earlier we always had a very mass development sort of an approach, where, there were maybe, say, learning programs or developmental programs, which were created and undertaken, but that was what at a very large scale. Now that has to be very individualized. So, and very customized and personalized. So it's only when these sort of basics, I think, get worked upon, maybe at least we organizations would at least begin the process of transformation. A transformation cannot be seen as an end in itself, that, it's a 1-year program and it's through. It has to be seen as a continuous journey, and here's hoping that we achieve it lesser than the 7 years as predicted by some statistics.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Vivek. So actually both speakers kind of had several similarities, but obviously there were different pointers as well shared. Mr. Anirudh, I really liked the point that you touched upon was about hybrid workforce again. And still we have this thing in our mind that hybrid workforce would still mean some people in office, some people at work at home. But what you've rightly mentioned is that, there could, first of all, the biggest opportunity is that there could be people who earlier, due to geographical constraint, could not be a part of your talent pool, but now can, because you're giving them the option of the hybrid working format. But we've also had speakers in the past who also talked about hybrid workforce from another perspective. It's also about, what if there are employees who now, in fact, they are already there in the market, that they demand for a more flexible format of working, just 4 days a week, not even 5 days a week. So you might end up having a talent pool, a workforce, which is working 5 days, which is working 4 days. Yes, Mr. Amrendra, something for this point that you would
No. Yeah. So I wanted to say,
yeah,
in that, in the same regard, if you look at the millennials, the millennials workforce, they don't belong to that 5 days, 7 days working style. And they don't belong to saying, okay, I'm coming to office every day morning. So the concept of 2 punch and 1 lunch is gone. Yeah. So they say, okay, you give me the job, I may finish it and give me a timeline. If you want it in 15 days, if I finish in 15 days, that's bang on. If I do it early, that's exceeding your expectation. If I do it late, then I fail in my job. They're as simple as that. And they don't bother about your, so, gone are the days when the employer had that regime of selecting the employees or the job seekers. Now, job seekers equally have that opportunity to select the employees.
certainly.
Yeah.
Certainly.
So what Anirudh was saying, in the hybrid model, this is a challenge which is going to be faced by all the HR leaders, mostly who have geographically distributed organization or multi-business, regime.
Yes, Mr. Anirudh.
I just wanted to complement what Amrendra was saying, that the flexibility is going to be the one of the core of the foundation of any work life for millennials. And one of the biggest retention tool also, if organization is not able to offer the flexibility for operating flexibility in terms of place, in terms of time and venue, everything, then it is difficult for them to this generation to retain. We are now having the generational workforce. I think it is important to look at what millennials want, and millennials, one of the theme has emerged wherever I've worked and discussed with them, that they want a lot of flexibility. They do not care about 9 to 5 office timings, 5 days, 6 days. They want to deliver. They are more driven by the objectives and goals for the organization rather than timing and control.
Certainly. So like both the speakers have currently also mentioned that, there could be a major set of your employees, and probably that set would be millennials, wherein that set of employees would be more, results oriented, would think about the end objective that needs to be worked rather than, was that ABC format utilized? How many hours did I invest in it? No, rather what was the result and was it in line with your expectations? So the hybrid workforce would encompass many things. Gone are the days when we still, are talking about geographically distributed workforce. No, in fact, HR leaders and organizations have been dealing with that and have aced that front, decades ago. Now, when we talk about distributed workforce, hybrid workforce, there are multiple factors, and that has a clear cut and direct impact even on the something as basic as the policies that an organization would have to guide the workforce. So the HR policy is something as simplistic and as basic, and something that is considered as the hygiene factor for the HR function for an organization, even that would have a major impact. So that's the whole thing that we are talking about, that, culture, it's not about, it's so easily said that's the culture of the company, but what is the culture of the company? And if it is so subjective, how can you make it objective? How can it be assessed Mr. Amrendra also had mentioned that there should be an assessment. You should know where you are. But how do you assess the subjective nature of culture is the biggest question, and is something that, and there are ways of making it objective for an assessment. So we'll get to that there a little, further when we are in this discussion. So let me quickly move to my next question. My next question, I'll direct first to Mr. Amrendra and then come back to Mr. Vivek for his views. Mr. Amrendra, organizations at times struggle to measure the impact of culture interventions. Is there a cheat sheet that you can advise on, for the audience to actually try to work with?
Sure. No, why they struggle? Because right from our childhood, the education is, we know numbers, yeah, 0 to 9. Okay, 99% is the good number, 19 is the bad number. And then the same set of people join the organizations where they're also strong at numbers only. So something which is tangible is seen by everybody, but culture is not that tangible. You can't measure it, just like a thermometer. First of all, it's a great point to define what is my culture. Yeah. So they say, okay, in our organization, there is no feedback culture. It's a culture. Having or not having is also a culture. Having a culture is a culture. Not having is also a culture. But then people do not summarize it. 5-6 points, if taken care of, I think we'll be able to measure the culture of the organization. And most of the organization, they do it. However, having said that, they do it for the namesake, post that, whatever the results that come out, most of the organization fumble in implementing those things, thinking what will happen if we do this. But they forget that this is the voice of our own employees. And if you're doing it for their betterment, you please take care of all those inputs. Otherwise, you will have issues like engagement or brain drain or teamwork, whatever. I mean, there could be a number of issues. The first and foremost that comes to my mind is the leadership. Yeah. How do we know the leadership culture? Yeah. How many of the people in the organization would look up to that single person saying, I want to become like this person one day? That's the culture. The very simple method of doing this is pulse survey. You do a pulse survey about that leader. Yeah. You get to know why people like him and why people aspire to be like him in days to come. I'll give you how do you assess a leader in a subtle way or in an open way. There are companies who openly says we assess our leaders and openly. Yeah. Second thing is communication. We are talking about communication, and more so because of the current situation. We have n number of communication channels, whether it's email, phone, WhatsApp, Insta, Facebook. Yeah. Now more and more social sites. We have our intranet, internet, email. Can we check, do a dipstick with the employees? Are you getting enough information about the company, about the role, about your progress, what's happening around, what's happening to you? You will clearly get an answer whether my channels are helping me out, they're not helping me out. Very simply. Third, the wellness, which is very, very important in today's context. If you look at the organizations which are more wellness conscious, the propensity of employee contributing more, staying more with the organization is higher. Yeah. We need to be conscious about the fact that, forget about the early 70s and 80s. And if you look at the trend also, as we come closer to millennials, they are very health conscious. Yeah. They would see, okay, you have gym, you have workout sessions, you have yogas. Whether or not, you will always have a population of 10% who will not be bothering about all these things. Can we do a dipstick about those things also? How do you measure whether people are well or not? You will have less absenteeism. In today's context, if somebody is not attending the Zoom call or a video call, you can understand that person is not fit, not well. higher productivity, low customer complaints if they're customer facing roles. So if these things are less or high, you have an index to measure their wellness. Very simple. Yeah. Fourth is agility. Now, agility is something people put in values and forget about it. Now, agility is something, it's a very key thing. The way you do things, the way you interact with the customer, do you have that sense of urgency? Do you have that empathy with the customer? Yeah. If you want to measure empathy, either your time scale has gone up, either your customer complaint has gone down, your delivery time has gone down, your quality index has gone up. You can measure agility. Agility is one of the culture. Yeah, we see in a lot many companies front page in website that agilities are one of the cultures. Yeah. Environment. The kind of environment that we provide to our people is also one of the cultures. Do we do a dipstick as to what kind of environment the organization is providing to employees, whether employees are happy with that environment or not happy with the environment? Yeah. It's very simple to measure the environment that we provide to our employees. There are set of tools available in the market. If you do a dipstick, you'll get to know what is the environment index of my company. We do a lot of what you call emotional intelligence and all that, EI, and we should do this. These are basic things, but if it's get taken care of, I don't think there will be any brain drain or a talent turnover from the organization. Innovation again, a culture which we see on the board of many companies. But how many companies talk about innovation? In our company, chairman talks about not only the innovation, he says somebody who has done something. Okay, how do you measure whether it has reduced the cost, it is cost effective, it has debottlenecked the idle processes, okay, debottlenecking, removing the idle processes, or customer satisfaction, because we stand for business. If it has done that, reward him, because we reward for the positive innovation. What my chairman says, reward that person for at least thinking and attempting, even if he failed. What will happen is this will develop a culture of innovation in everybody's mind. I will also start thinking, let me try, boss. I think I can also do something. But if you don't try and don't bring him to the dice and say he tried but he failed, but we appreciate his effort, people will be closed. They say, okay, only one person will get the award, others won't. But then that's not culture. It's one person's effort. You want the culture to be adopted by across the organization, then you need to take the plus and minuses both sides. So these are some of the small inputs. But if we take all these things into consideration, vision for say, a lot of people say vision is this is our vision, this is our culture. Do a dipstick whether everybody understands the vision or not. Does everyone in the organization understand what we stand for? Vision is basically what? Where we want to be in next, or why do we exist? Does all my employee understand what is vision? Or it is just a statement written on the wall? These are some of the subtle things can be measured. If measured, will show us the real picture of our cultural index. And then the remedy is already available there. Nobody knows what is to be done about my organization better than myself. Yeah. I don't need to hire a consultant for that, because I know what is exactly happening. And if I accept the reality, I think I can move forward. So that's some of the points that I wanted to
Thank you so much, Mr. Amarendra. In fact, what you've said is very, very clean, neat, and what you've said is about the pulse survey, which obviously is the most efficient way of even getting the, the initial pointers to understand the real pulse of the organization. But sir, on one thing I would beg to differ is please, you should work with consultants also, because they would bring in an external expertise.
No,
They have the
they
experience
do.
of working with
They do.
other industries. So
They do.
sometimes, it happens that internally people are so close to the problem, it's better to have an external perspective. Bas 19-20 ka fark hoga, but that
No. So
19-20 different.
understood. By saying that, what I meant was, you always take help, because
Take it,
nobody had the knowledge about all these processes. What I
certainly.
said, it has
I
to be a mutual consent between any party involved,
certainly.
and the idea is to really improve, not doing a painting process, but then really improve the process.
Yes, completely agree with you. And in fact, even the interventions that we work on, it is ultimately the HR that we sit with to understand what the organization is, what is the pulse of the organization, because the HR is the bridge between the employees and the management. So has a good understanding of what are the management expectations versus what is the communication that is going to the employees, plus what is the employees' expectations and how it is being communicated to the management. So
Correct.
even the first thing that we do whenever we work on any intervention, all jokes apart, is always on business understanding and HR understanding and people organization understanding. And without that, no external entity can actually help you. So that's true. So, Mr. Vivek, the same question to you, that organizations at times struggle to measure the impact of their culture interventions. So is there a cheat sheet that can be used in this scenario?
I would say both both Mr. Amarendra and you have, almost summarized and completed all the aspects of this particular question which you said. But I would say a couple of thoughts on this. Despite the murkiness which exists, HR leaders, and I'm sure Mr. Aniruddha and Amarendra would agree, they are, tasked with the fact that they have to build and maintain culture. That's not an easy job. That's as good as telling the leader to pin a jello to the tree. The reason why so many interventions sort of fail, or maybe they don't achieve the sort of success which is intended in the first place, is because they don't get the sort of assessments done, or they don't analyze the behavioral patterns which Mr. Amarendra had also talked about earlier. So one of the major parts which organizations can think about, I would say, is in terms of conducting a baseline survey as part of as an initial phase to understand the as is, to understand the pulse in terms of what is it that employees really feel, what is the underlying current within the organization, and followed by that, maybe you conduct a survey towards the end, and then you again review and reassess. So it has to be a cyclical and continuous process. See, ultimately, until and unless you assess, you will not be able to get to the question that is what an organization says. Are we truly meaning what we are saying about that? Is that being answered? That is something which is very essential. So that is the first part in terms of assessing, getting that assessment done. The second part is monitoring. It's fine that great many initiatives get ticked about, but are you monitoring the progress of the roadmap in first place? So of course, organizations with their HRs and HODs would be stuck with certain operational necessities. So that is where they can also consider having a partner on board to regularly review and tracking to ensure that these things are in place. And to build across all these pieces, Deming once remarked that if you don't have data, you're just another person with an opinion. So that is how it is. But at the end of the day, it is opinions which matter. It is ultimately those are the opinions which, if taken into consideration, would drive an organization ahead. If leaders and teams are able to have the data on hand, they would be able to take better decisions, be it maybe with regards to performance management, or maybe with regards to employee retention. How better can you create an engaged workforce? How can you enhance productivity? All those factors can be taken into consideration when you do a rigorous data analysis. And undertaking pulse surveys of multiple sorts, it has to be a continuous process in itself. It must not be thought that is saal ka survey ho gaya, so we are done with it. So those are my thoughts in terms of what will help organizations gain a better understanding of the behaviors, the values and beliefs. Until and unless you assess that, we would be nowhere close to, a success of the culture intervention as such.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Vivek. So quickly, we'll move to our next question. And what I'll be doing is I'll be keeping my next couple of questions common to all the panelists. So we could start with Mr. Anirudh's, hear his views, move to Mr. Amarendra, and then to Mr. Vivek. So Mr. Anirudh, your views on this question. What, as per you, is the best way to chart the roadmap for culture transformation? Is it just to take organizational understanding? Is it management's expectations? Is it HR's expertise? Is it results of any culture assessment that might have been done, or a mix of all? If you could elaborate a little.
Sujata, I would like to add on about the impact of the culture and share my experiences, and then move on to this question too.
Sure, please.
If you look at the impact of the culture, though there is a survey which says that 5% profit up, productivity up, if there is a strong culture. But first you have to understand what is the culture and what kind of the culture is. And so there are multiple kind of culture. There is a blame culture, there's a hierarchy-driven, a fear-driven culture, there's a culture of, no direction. There are different departments working in a different way. There's the culture of oneness, togetherness, in one direction, non-hierarchical. So first is that understanding where you stand together, which Amarendra has already mentioned in previous conversation. Another thing is that when you have a good culture, strong culture is aligned with the strategy, you have a highly engaged workforce. When you have a highly engaged workforce, you have high productivity, higher customer satisfaction. So this is the way. Couple of things which I have done in my career is, one was we created a link called it cultural anthropy, that this is the set of values, this is the set of behavior. If there is any digression or there is any violation of those values, just pin it. And that at the end of every quarter, we are saying that these are many digressions. This is how we are doing in our web chart. Another thing I did was, there was some of issues and the values in my previous organization. So we did the value survey, and it was 360-degree feedback. And first, second, third, by fourth, our organization completed discipline. That this is the serious issue. This is not only the piece of papers. This is not only for drawing board. This is not only in PowerPoint presentation, but it means. Third is that whenever you are trying to build a culture, never ever sacrifice the culture for the short-term gratifications. So I think these are the couple of things which are very, very important in terms of measuring the culture. And so you said the cheat sheets. So there are two cheat sheets. One is the cultural anthropy. Another, second is the value survey we used in my past. As far as the roadmap is concerned, the roadmap I have used in my journey is, the first and foremost thing is that alignment. It is highly important that you align the whole organization with the purpose of change. What are your current conditions? What are going to be your future conditions? And why this change is happening? Unless that clarity is there, it is next to impossible that the people will follow the culture, because you have made certain presentations, you have communicated. So the strong alignment is the beginning as a first step. How we will work, how we'll move, what will be the roadmap, why it's necessary, what the sense of urgency. The alignment is the most and most important. Second step is the leadership commitment and participation. And I see in my current organization that whatever values we have, I see the living being in terms of my MD and the people who have been with this organization since a long time in leadership positions. They live it by spirit, by words. And everybody watch it, that they are walking the talk. Suppose I ask that everybody has to come to office with a mask on, and I don't myself wear as an MD. Well, people will follow this. As soon as I am not in their eyes, they will throw it off. So any cultural change will happen and start from the leadership. If the leadership is committed, leadership displaying, walking the talk, then only it is possible. Third is bottom-up approach, I always say. It is not that 4 or 5 people have decided what kind of the culture should be, but one of my survey I did that, what is the ideal workplace? And then we got kind of the feedback from the people that this is what we want. And then, start building. So the building culture is bottom-up approach, but driving culture is a top-down approach. It is very, very important to understand this nuance. Most of the people miss this. So you might have seen this, I'm sure, law of diffusion, that 2.5% people are the innovator, the top, and then around 12 to 13.5% people are the early adopter, then 30% majority early adoption, and 30% late majority, and then 20% people who are very reluctant. So the challenge is that how to align this 30-30. 20% people may not, but at least this whole organization is aligned. That's another thing. And fourth is you have to create the entire processes around sustaining this culture, which you are envisaging. And here is the role of the consultants comes. How the consultants can help. One is the tools you have for these surveys, the database you have, the fairness and the fearless also. When a third party is doing the survey, giving a presentation, giving interpretation, it is not biased at time. So that's the value the consultant adds. And also the lot of benchmark studies, the previous work experiences you bring in. So I would say that consultants do play a lot of role, Sujata, and we always look forward for partnering with the consultants who can help us and build a better culture. It is a co-creation always. It is never a person within the organization or outside. We all partner together and create a wonderful workplaces. And I think you do have a role to play, and you come with a distinctive value proposition for the organizations.
Thank you so
These
much.
are the 4 steps, I think. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Anirudh. In fact, I loved the term that you've used, because that is something that we widely talk to whenever we are talking to our clients, is co-creation, because it is co-creation. No external entity can ever come and tell you that this is the XYZ things that from today on you need to, follow. It is always a co-creation. And in fact, it's co-creation with the HR and the external entities, and it is a co-creation of the HR and the internal entities as well. If there's something that, and like we've also been talking about how today's employees and the workforce, they do not like to be told that exactly that this is what needs to be done. They do not like an authoritarian mode of working. So even HR leaders have to co-create several things internally, which would ultimately lead to early adoption. If they are a part of the journey, if they are a part of designing something on culture, they would certainly accept it, because they were the ones who had designed it, who had given inputs for the creation of it. So these are some of the ways. So Mr. Vivek, if you could also share your views, that what as per you is the best way to chart the roadmap for culture transformation? Is it organizational understanding? Is it management's expectations? Is it HR's expertise? Is it the results of culture assessment, or a mix of them all?
An interesting question, Sujata. So I would say this. I mean, you won't set off on a long road trip or maybe a sailing adventure without having a map in place or the skills in place to navigate that, right? The same can be said about culture transformations. No? So you need to create a strategy around it and stick to it and measure it efficiently until you reach the desired endpoint. I know the word strategy has been bandied about a lot, but unfortunately, that's how it is. So the first step, which I would say organizations can always look to, is in terms of first, what Mr. Anirudh also talked about in terms of alignment. So determining is everybody on the same page as where we are as of now. Once you do that, you are in a much more better position to define as to where you would want to be in the future. You were asking in terms of, is it organizational understanding? Is it an HR expertise? Or maybe I would say what I feel is it's a mix of all, because it's always a mix. At the end of the day, you need to understand and hear the voice of the employees, but at the same time, maybe also capture in an essential aspect of the management's expectation as well. So as long as that bridge is being built, as long as all these three partners are roughly on the same page, that is a good starting point in terms of charting the roadmap for transformation. A couple of other aspects, organizations have worked upon multiple strategies, multiple interventions, but sometimes, what happens is employees would maybe trust an external partner because since they feel that maybe the partner has to deliver results at the end of the day, and so there is a greater probability that they would maybe open up. You need to build the voice of, you need to determine the voice of people, and that can only happen when you are able to create such an environment where you are able to gather all these inputs. Lastly, I would also say that, measure progress and celebrate successes. It's fine even if the success is a small little piece, celebrate it at the end of the day, because this is the process in itself. A culture transformation needs to be considered as a journey. And of course, all this is easier said than done. Mr. Anirudh also talked about an essential aspect of the leadership's commitment, right? So along with that, I would say a commitment needs to be given from everybody. So be it your HR team in itself, be it the leadership, or be it individuals or across the organizations. When you have very clear goals that are laid out, it's much more easier to see the path to change and achieve whatever you had planned out at the end of the day. So those are my thoughts in terms of, how can you chart the progress in terms of a culture transformation.
Sure. So, Mr. Amarendra, could you also share your views on this topic that, ultimately what are the inputs, and what is the best way of charting? Is it just one format, one parameter, which would be an input, or a mix of all of these parameters that I had mentioned?
I think it's a mix of all. I think a lot has been said by Anirudh and Vivek, but I would say it's a mix of all because it is not one man's baby. Nobody is going to listen to me if I say, okay, these are my 5-6 core values. On what basis? Yeah, and gone are the days. And I'm talking about this era where we're sitting. It's a blend of millennials and baby boomers and 80s and 70s going to be retired. But then nobody will listen to you. There has to be a purpose with everything that exists. That purpose has to be explained to them. And it's good to have good value system and the culture on the wall, but it is not that something you want in the organization. You want them to practice it. So if you want them to practice it, so unless you take the organization along with you, the business priorities, we exist for business. Yeah. Business means growth, profitability, customer satisfaction, and then social responsibilities. Yeah, which also comes in. So if you stand for these three, organization has to be at the core of it. Yeah. This is the player who's going to orchestrate between all of us. Yeah. HR's role is to create many HRs within these. If I sit if I have the view that I'm the HR and I'm going to manage the culture and I'm going to monitor and review the culture of the organization, then I think I'm in the wrong place. And my thinking is wrong. My role is to create. See, the HR's role is to enable. Whatever you do. So look at the transformation. Earlier days, the increment used to happen from HR desk. In earlier days where it was like the plant is also there, the society is also there. They have a township. The house allotment used to happen from HR, and HR had been like God and goddess of the organization. Yeah. So I've heard those stories. Now, there is a shift. Now, what is happening is, if I am the leader of a business or a functional head, and below me there are 5 people, he is given a kitty of promotion and increment. That kitty is given to him. Boss, you manage your team members. You have given them the rating. You decide what kind of increment you have to give. What is the HR's role? HR's role is to make him understand how can he be fair. What kind of rating have you given? Is it in line with company's thought process? Because not everybody is equipped to that process. Now, HR is a lighthouse. They will show you where to go. Once you have gone to that path, then you are on your own. So in a typical plant where Anirudh would echo with my thought process, the production manager or the supervisor, shift supervisor is the first line of HR manager. He knows everything. He knows when the guy is going on leave. He should be knowing what is the shift timing and everything. So he knows the tip of the iceberg and what is below the iceberg. If you talk to him, he'll tell you what's currently happening in the shop floor. Yeah, so that's an example. So we need to take those learnings to the table and then co-create. Yeah, rightly said. There are organizations which are self-sufficient in doing so, but then it's always inward looking. If you want to be an outward looking and compare yourself where you stand in terms of benchmarking, then you have to hire an agency where they have millions of databases. When your cultural this thing is done, you mirror it with the rest of the world, and then you see, because obviously you want the best, right? Unless your intent is to not get the best right, then you can do it on your own and be happy with it. If you want to be compared with the benchmark, you have to have an external agency is doing that, okay? And yes, I would still say the fearless and fairnessness. We say that if a third party is doing, it is great, but it is also a painful thinking. My own people do not trust me, and why do I exist for? You get my point? If I know maths, I can teach my son, right? And if my son says, I don't want to learn from you, will that not be a painful experience for you as a father? It will be. Had I not been knowing, I would have hired somebody. But if I know, why can't I do it in-house? From that context, I was mentioning that. Otherwise, you need to have data to compare yourself. Where do you stand? So it is not a one man's baby. It has to be a co-creation of all these inputs to create a culture format.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Amrendra. In fact, what you said is so right that ultimately it is a co-creation. It is about the inputs from multiple facets. It is about what the management expects. Ultimately, what is it the employees want? What is the future course of action? So the inputs have to come from varied sources. And, I understand where you're coming from when you say that, it's such a painful thing that employees don't trust me. I think it's more than that. And we do not live in an ideal world. We know that it's not about trust mainly, but it's at times, something so simple that मैंने अगर बता दिया तो ultimately है तो ये HR, so it's not necessarily that they don't trust you.
I think now that myth is also breaking over a period of time.
Yeah, so that's the whole point, and that is how that is why the entire ecosystem was created about that there are HRs that ultimately how and when do they engage with external partners, and what are the expertise that the external partners would bring on board. Like
right.
we've been talking about culture for so long. All the speakers have talked about doing culture assessment to even start with, but like we had mentioned, and like all the speakers have mentioned about the subjective nature of culture. So this is something, the first question that even we get when we approach companies and when we discuss with HR leaders, when we talk with management, because HR would still understand the nuances, would certainly know the parameters on which the culture can be assessed, but the management at times is not exactly in line with those thoughts, does not really know that how can you really assess culture. So that is where you need to make it objective. You have to think about the organizational values, because yes, values form an important part of the culture, and like our speakers have already mentioned, don't just stop at values, have behaviors, because the values, your vision, your mission, they are not just for your website. They're not just supposed to be a fancy placard which is put up, but there is a certain behavior that needs to be attached to those values. Otherwise, how would you know that your organization stands for integrity, stands for innovation, stands for empowerment? How can you say that? So values is an important factor to assess when it comes to what kind of culture do you have. Ultimately it is, if an employee feels valued within your company, is when you have a great culture. So what is your rewards and recognition framework? What is it that you're doing in your learning and development? What sort of a career progression are you giving? Are you walking the talk when you say that I'm giving empowerment? So do you really have a delegation of authority? Is it defined? Is it documented so that your compliances are straight and clean and clear? Are we still talking about employee engagement, or have we moved and started talking about employee experience, which would go beyond the fun activities that we do? Yes, fun activities and birthday celebrations are important, but your engagement, your experience goes beyond it. There are several other things that you need to do, like you've mentioned about wellness. So what is it that the company is doing when it comes to the health and wellness of their employees? So that would also define the culture that ultimately your company has. Sustainability, social responsibility, very, very rightly touched upon. Because these days, your consumers as well as your internal employees, they've become very conscious of whom are they being associated with. What does the company do? What is the purpose of their own role, plus what is the company doing for the society? So these are some of the things. So these are the factors that we tell the HRs and the management, that these are the things that we will actually assess your culture on, show you where do you stand currently, so that we can derive and co-create a roadmap of ideally where you should have been, or where do you want to go a year, 2 years down the line. And that is why several tools are used, like rightly mentioned. There are pulse survey tools, employee engagement surveys that can be conducted, climate survey that can be conducted. But these are few inputs. Then interactions are important, employee workshops are important, because in the workshops is when we try to kind of shake off whatever fear employees might have in sharing their views. And we use a lot of a lot of methods to keep their inputs anonymous, because inputs are important. It does not matter who said it. So these are some of the things, some of the factors on which whenever culture assessment is conducted, the focus needs to be laid upon. So with that, let me move to my final question of the panel. Mr. Anirudh, if you could share your views first on this. Mr. Anirudh, what advice can you give to other HR leaders and professionals regarding the focus that is needed on culture enrichment?
Yeah, sure. So what Amrendra was talking, that it is the supervisor who knows everything, what is inside and outside. So if you look at culture, engagement, or experience, it is all personalized by the supervisor or manager, which is on front. It is very, very important that the complete alignment is there. That's what Amrendra was saying. And you have to create a greater purpose. Why we exist for? What's the purpose of the organizations? So look at, if I'm going into cultural transformation journey, I would like, what is the alignment of the people with my purpose first? And values reflected on the behavior of the people. So look at that quotient, that how values are lived in this organization. So published values and lived value. These are the two different values. A lot of organizations have got a lot of fancy values, but what actually are they lived by the people? Third aspect of is principles. The basis I take a decision, the management team take a decision, a person who is at front, or the line manager or supervisor, how they take decisions. So I think these are the three aspects of the culture which is measurable, which can be assessed basis on that. Second is that do not templatize the culture transformation journey. It is a unique journey for every organization, depending on where you stand today. What are your business strategy? What kind of alignment you want? What's the reason for the change? Rather temporalizing. So that's why if you look at 20 organizations, most of them will find the same value. However, these two organizations are functioning very, very different. What has happened? Someone has come, so let's create a vision statement, some create a value statement, and 20 people sitting together and created those values, and they are being displayed on the conference room boards and everywhere else. So that is not, so do not create templates for transformation journey, but embark on your own original journey. Take the support of the third party consultants like you, that how you can collaborate and get your experience, which is, the culture is a living, like your body is living organization. Organization. So organization is also living being. And that how all the part of the organizations are functioning, aligned together, how decisions are made, how the values are lived, how everybody is aligned with purpose is very, very important. That's my advice to the young professionals and the HR professionals and the CEOs of the company that do not try to templatize it, rather go on your own original journey. And when you're doing, say that these are my target conditions, what are the future conditions, and how I will walk through this journey. And it has to be your own journey, not those fanciful words.
That's interesting, and in fact so simple but so effective that it has to be your journey. So do not make it template based. Never have a culture transformation journey or a roadmap, or never have any other important strategic intervention which is a copy paste of some other player in the industry. It has to be about your own organization. So have an original roadmap and then work towards it. Mr. Amrendra, your views on this, that what advice will you give to other HR leaders and professionals regarding the focus on culture enrichment?
Okay. So taking a clue from your statement, the way we four individuals are different. Yeah, we have our own personality, right? You are a different personality, Anirudh is different, Vivek is different, I am different. Each organization's culture is also a personality. It's a personality. It tells you the personality of the organization. We talk about the corridor talk or the gallery talk. This organization's culture is very good. The kind of onboarding they do, the kind of training they do, the kind of empathy that they demonstrate. It's all about this. The corridor talks between two colleagues that happen. And therefore, the leadership team and the organization keep having those kind of discussions as to where we are lacking and what we are good at. If you have 5 cultural value systems, out of that 5, where are we scoring 95%, 98%, 99%? And where do you think you're not that great and which has a larger impact on my business? I always remind in my discussion, we are in the business, and the business stay for business growth, profitability, and customer satisfaction. So everything has to revolve around that. Everything supplement to that journey. If that is not happening, nothing will happen. Yeah. For the HR leaders, my one suggestion, most of us do the performance management system. Once in a year, appraisal is done. Somebody who's doing great, and then we have a bell curve. Some may not have bell curve as well. How many of us ask the individual and the line manager to write about the culture, the value system? You have 5 KRAs, right? In each KRA, you demonstrate certain values. Why don't you just write that and write it? I demonstrated. So if let's say you're doing cost saving, one of the initiative for any engineering guy, right? I'm taking an example. He has to do some innovation, has to think innovatively certain things. Write down, doing this, I demonstrated the one of the core values of the company, which is innovation. Right? Reward that person for innovation. Some may write teamwork, some may write going beyond the call of duty hours, which is sense of urgency, which is a demonstrated behavior that we expect your employees to do. Because in today's world of online, anything and everything goes viral within few seconds. You keep reading on LinkedIn about Ola and Ubers. So anything that you do will have a bigger impact. So rather than taking that negative or positive, I don't know what will happen. Why don't you reward somebody for doing something extra mile? That's also a culture. Yeah. Any business meetings should start with the values index. Let us talk about those things and understand where are we. Numbers, we discuss n number of times, day in, day out. We eat, drink, and sleep the numbers 24/7. Certain things which are, as Anirudh was mentioning, should not be a placard mentioned in the website or the walls of the organization. We need to really live with it and live by it every day. Yeah, then only the brand building of the organization happens, and it is just not mere word. So it is not the responsibility of the business head or the HR head. And I think again, the co-creation comes. How you enable the people. So a newcomer is coming to organization. Let's say you go to a management college or engineering college. You hire 30, 40 people. The onus lies with you how you treat them. The way they are treated, they will understand this is the way this organization works. And over a period of time, they will also become like this before you realize that, oh, I have damaged it already, and the damage is already done. So even if I have realized I need to change the culture over a 5 period time, and I know that every year I hire 40 people, that means in 5 years I'll have 200 people in my organization. I need to start today. So that in 5 years time, I will have a different set of people with a different cultural orientation. So that's my view about, and that's my suggestion to all the business folks, HR folks, and to every employees. It is not HR's job. It is not business head's job. It is each employee's job. If they take the offer, they know this company displays this kind of and loves to be in this kind of see this, as I said, acquired behavior and preferred behavior. If I am going to X company and I have read about them, then I have to acquire those behavior and demonstrate. I cannot be the way I am at home or at the fun place, right? I need to acquire those behaviors. So the onus lies with the individual. Of course, it lies with the business heads and the HRs or the business leaders or the function heads. But then forcing, enforcement theory doesn't work. What works is the acceptance theory. So some people, you'll always have 10% problem creators, for which I think we have enough processes in place. But then it is responsibility each and every one. The only thing is that what touch points we select to talk about, to feel about, to reward those values, and at what frequency, what occasions. When we do a fun activity, do we talk about something about culture? Some companies may have wellness as a culture or safety as a culture. There are, in my previous organization, for any program that we used to start, the hotel, if it is happening in a big hotel, that the safety manager has to come and tell us everything about the safety. Where is the assembly point? How many hydrants? In case, what kind of sirens is it blows? Everything they will explain. So that is their culture. The safety of people is paramount importance for them. So that is how it is. It is, at what touch points you repeat and repeat your cultural and behavioral aspects. Is my suggestion to everyone.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Amrendra. In fact, two very clear indicators that you've shared is one is obviously reward the demonstrated behaviors when it comes to either culture parameters and mainly on values. And secondly, it is about mirroring that you were talking about. That so the example that you shared about was about hiring or doing campus recruitments. So the way your representative from the company would behave with your prospective employees, they might start mirroring the same thing once they join your company. So these are some very important psychological factors that impact the culture of a company in the long run. Thank you, Mr. Amrendra. So, Mr. Vivek, even your views on this question, that what is the advice that you would give for with regards to the focus needed on culture enrichment?
Thanks, Sujata, for sharing this. I think a lot has been, of course, the esteemed leaders have wonderfully shared multiple aspects in terms of, what can organizations really do. To add to all that, what I would say is, the focus also must be in terms of growing more number of effective and future leaders, because it's identifying those change champions, who can drive it in the longer run, because it's not just HR's jobs alone. So how do you identify those change agents? That is the key to unlocking, your future potential and meeting the current demands of business, meeting future perspectives as well. Secondly, I would say in the current generation which we are in, a lot has to be focused in terms of building new skills and talent, and that has to be meeting the specific needs and expectations of employees. That is something which is very, very critical, because if that happens in the longer run, you would definitely be able to meet those different perspectives. The third aspect which I would say is, you have to develop the act of collaboration and, courageous partnering. Have more amount of authentic and open communication. And lastly, one essential aspect is, the moment you talk about enforcement, there will always be resistance. That is where, you need to answer the question of, what's in it for me? Because when that gets taken care of, in the longer run, what happens is you need to think of culture as a huge ship in which, everyone has to be on board. Because if they are not on board, ultimately, whatever the best of the intentions you may have and whatever the best initiatives which you may take, there would be some lacuna, there would be some failure which you might see. And so that is all something which I would add. And at the end, if you take care of these basic aspects, if you take care of the culture aspect as such, the rest of the stuff will take care of itself.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Vivek. In fact, all of our speakers, I can understand and I can actually see, not just on their face, but also in the voice, the kind of passion that all of our speakers have shared on this important topic of culture transformation and charting a roadmap for culture transformation. So with that, we will be soon moving to the Q&A session. Like I had mentioned, we had pre-received certain questions. So prior to that, again, just a reminder to all of our attendees, please join us again on 18th of December at 4 p.m. for the next webinar, which is Ushering the New Age of Talent Management. And let's hear from HR leaders about the best practices that they plan to adopt or have already adopted for talent management in this new age. So with that, let's move to the Q&A session of today. We had pre-received certain questions, so I'll direct those questions one by one. In fact, first question I want to keep common to two of my speakers, to Mr. Amrendra and to Mr. Anirudh. So Mr. Amrendra, if you could first share your views and then we could move to Mr. Anirudh for this. You've talked about the importance of values in culture. So apart from having behaviors related to values, have you taken any steps in percolating the values through the employee life cycle?
Yes. So as I said, when an employee
have we lost connectivity with Mr. Amrendra?
Yeah, I think so.
Yes. So Mr. Anirudh, if you could start with your response and then maybe in the meanwhile, he might be able to rejoin.
I would like to talk in the context of the organization I'm working with. So we have
Sure.
got 4 values. One is 3 T's, we call them: teamwork, trust, and transparency. Now, how we are displaying it in our actions, behavior, and also the processes we have created. So look at the teamwork. We work in a way which is called forum-based working. So there is an issue where there will be a multidisciplinary team will be created, and this forum together will resolve that issue. So one direction, one forum. One issue, one forum. Another, the organization structure is not a whole lot hierarchical. We keep calling about the teamwork, but then if you have created the complete organization structure which is hierarchical, the teamwork will never take place. It will be a fear-driven organization. So our structure is the wheel, hub, and spoke model. So every hub is important, every spoke is important, and equally important. So everybody is important. If one spoke is not working, the whole wheel is not working. If hub is not working, the whole wheel is not working. That's the concept we live and demonstrate. Coming into your transparency question, how we have designed everything in organization is displayed in the glass walls. If you look at our glass walls, what is happening, what is the production happening, what kind of finances are there, everything, but barring some sensitive information which is not to be shared, whatever the employee need to know, they know. That's how you build a culture. If you come into the trust, togetherness. Employees are given complete autonomy to decide, deliver, and do the work. There is no micromanagement, microscopic view on them. So these are the values. Once it's been demonstrated, you have created the structure, you have created the processes, the management is, it comes from your kind of structure you have, kind of the management processes you have, the way the organization works. It's the high-tech way we do it, and we demonstrate our values in every aspect. Yeah.
Okay, it was very interesting. In fact, quite personal as well when you say that do it the high-tech way. So that's a very nice way of putting it. And as you've mentioned, even we've seen similar patterns in varied industries. That now organizations are putting a lot of focus on the work that they do for values, because they understand that values are ultimately the biggest contributor towards what kind of culture are you building. And yes, having values and behaviors is paramount, and as all of our speakers have mentioned. But apart from that, it's also necessary to percolate the values through the employee life cycle, because that helps you answer the question of what's in it for me. Why should your employees learn your values? Should they really just by heart it? Should they, or how should they be demonstrating it through behaviors? Why should they do that?
Yeah.
Are you recognizing them when they actually demonstrate the value? So is your R&R somewhere related with your values? Are you, somewhere evaluating the demonstration of values during their PMS? Are you giving a weightage to performance plus behavior? So that's a way when you're trying to, hire employees, and whenever we say that that person is not a culture fit. So instead of just following the gut feeling and understanding that whether or not whether an individual is culturally fit or not, why not actually try and assess the values during the interview process? Yes, Mr. Anirudh.
Look at, again, I'll talk on the very practical condition of something theoretical, how we do it so that others learn from it. We put a lot of emphasis on the value and culture. And it starts from entry to exit. And every gate for the employee is demonstrated, even before the person is hired and on board. So we have a process called the talent integration process. In this talent integration process, pre-boarding, joining, and board, then complete boarding, then integration. And this is completely managed by the MD office. For all the critical talent, the MD is himself managed. That the person is culturally completely aligned. He has the complete awareness about the way we work. And for us, the cultural fit is the most important. Anything else we can compromise. So we have got a 3 months talent integration process, which start from pre-hiring to hiring, pre-joining, joining to the complete integration. And that's managed by the MD. Our job of our MD is the chief cultural architect. So looking at then performance, how the person has demonstrated the values, and we reward the values more than anything else. We can compromise on the performance, but not on the willingness to perform, which is the core value for us.
Thank you so much, Mr. Anirudh, and very nicely put with such simplistic examples. Mr. Vivek, we have one question that, I would like to direct to you. If you could throw some light, when we've been talking about, communication and its importance. So if you could throw some light on the importance of employer branding, organizational branding, what are the means and what is its impact, especially even when it comes to the process as simple as talent acquisition, or rather as difficult as talent acquisition. Mr. Vivek, you're on mute.
Sorry. So when we talk about branding, I have just very clear and a single line which says that, what gets seen gets accepted at the end of the day. So that is something which is very essential for organizations, and they have to work across multiple aspects. And there are very, minor and simple aspects which they can work upon. ultimately, what can you do towards internalizing these values at the end of the day? How do you ensure that the visibility of it increases? So, maybe you can consider having interactive sessions. Maybe there could be aspects in terms of, pledge walls, which could be there. Maybe there could be aspects of handbooks which could be created. I can also think of different videos which could be created on a similar aspect. Even, very basic and simpler aspect like having collaterals or danglers, which we typically see in your shopping centers as such. They always stay in our mind at the end of the day. Until and unless these sort of visible indicators are showcased to people, because yes, there are two aspects to it. One is in terms of walking the talk, and at the same time building these sort of pieces for organizations, be it in terms of e-media, be it in terms of very simpler things such as having a newsletter. Maybe there is a communication which is coming from the management, which talks about the importance of how a particular value was demonstrated or how it was won. And it has to be a continuous aspect. Maybe in fact, I think you or one of the speakers had talked about rewarding employees when they say they have displayed a certain behavior in terms of particular value assets. That is one of the ways in which you can, in the longer run, inculcate people to believe in those values, because it should not be a mere definition alone. That is the problem which it happens, that over a period of time people often forget their own organizational values as such, and that's something which can be avoided in the longer run if maybe these simpler aspects of branding get internalized and worked upon at the end of the day.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Vivek. So I think Mr. Amrendra is still facing technical issues, and thus he hasn't been able to rejoin us. Nevertheless, we are closer to a wrap for today's session. So just to summarize a little, obviously, yes, culture does eat strategy for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. There are multiple studies, researches, statistics that have backed the fact that organizations that invest and work towards building an enriching organizational culture, they ultimately are the ones that outperform their competitors. I think Mr. Amrendra is just joining us. Yes, Mr. Amrendra, glad that you could rejoin us. Mr. Amrendra, yes. Well, I was just wrapping the session because I thought that maybe you might not be able to rejoin us.
So Vivek said, try with hotspot. Hotspot was not working. Then I called my admin fellow of the tower. I said, how long would it take to switch on the generator? Then they switched on. Somehow I could make it. Yeah, I'm so sorry.
No issues. So maybe
these are some of the technology blues.
Yeah, well, it happens. We can't help it. We've put a lot of pressure on technology in the past 7-8 months.
Right.
So, Mr. Amrendra, we were just closer to wrapping the session. But prior to closing, we wish to hear your views with regards to how have you percolated values through the employee life cycle within your organization.
So I was mentioning, it is how you take example of the family. What happens in a typical family? The child starts learning the way the parents behave. Yeah, if a child has a fighting environment, be rest assured that the child will also have the same tendency in the school. So when we hire somebody, we also look at this, the background of the person. Or if you know somebody who is very, very finicky in the office, always fault finding, problematic, you do a deep diving, you'll understand there's something in his mind. He was not born like that. No, God created everybody pure, right? It is the environment around you that made you like this, and that made him or her like this. So every touch point that an employee touches during his stay with the organization, whether it is right from hiring, as I said, it is not employer choice, it is employee choice now. Till the time he stays and exit, Because once somebody exits, does not mean that the relationship is ending. The journey is starting. Why? Because he is going to be the ambassador for you for many more. He is ending his career with you, but not others. So wherever he goes, he will tell my FNF and my exit process was so smooth. I'll tell you, gem of a company, boss. I never had any problem. They'll say, Acha. So that's the kind I'm saying. Each and every step, you need to look for that. You know, we were talking about not experience. You said that term experience. It's delight. Yeah. If the employee experiences delight with whatever you do and at every touch point, your job is done. We need to look at, do a dipstick, think through and make it better every time. How can I make it more delightful for my employees? Yeah. It could be serving a cup of coffee. How can I make it more delightful for him? It could be imparting a training. It could be as simple as stationaries in the office. Do we have a cumbersome process or do we have a smooth process where employee feel valued before? Why Apple is valued? Why iPhone is much more sought after phone in the company? I mean, the people have queues in United States before the phone is launched. Because what Apple says, we read human minds, what they need, and then we engineer our phone like that. So can we read our employees' mind, what they need, and work around it without compromising, of course, on our core values and systems? Can we give them within the paraphernalia what they expect? It is all about assessing and reassessing ourselves, our own system, and benchmarking the system against the best of the world. Yeah, you will have a better culture in the organization.
Sure.
That's the point I wanted to make.
Thank you so much, Mr. Amrendra. And it was nice that you rejoined us because otherwise we would have missed these final words from you on this webinar. Like we've been talking about charting the roadmap for culture transformation. And to chart a roadmap, you first need to do an assessment. First need to see where do you stand currently, where does your culture currently stand in the scheme of things, and then chart the roadmap to go forward from there. So, and then, like our speakers have rightly mentioned, reassess, realign, and manage this journey. So it's not that you've, finally decided a goalpost where you need to reach. Rather, you might need a realignment, a reassessment, even during the journey. So it's very important, and it is a very practical format of actually working on culture. We at Creating Values, we worked widely when it comes to culture assessment, culture transformation. We've also very widely worked on values, defining behaviors, and percolating it through the entire employee life cycle so that it's clearly answered for the employees that what's in it for them if they demonstrate the behaviors and the values that your organization stands for. So we have case studies and case studies even in video format as well as in written format. So if any organization wishes to work on these factors, please feel free to get in touch with us for those case studies so that you can go through it and understand how the entire project was structured and executed. So on that note, I take this opportunity to first thank the audience that joined us on YouTube for the webinar. And like we mentioned, the recorded version of this webinar will be available in the next few days. It will be uploaded on our LinkedIn page as well of Creating Values so that you can access the recorded version of today's discussion. And it can be revisited internally by you with your other colleagues, with your management, so that the notes, the insights, the learnings that our speakers have shared can be actually utilized in your own form. And now I take this opportunity to thank all of our esteemed speakers, Mr. Anirudh, Mr. Amrendra, and Mr. Vivek, for giving us your valuable time and your valuable learnings, your own case studies, the things that you're doing currently, the things that you've done in the past, and learnings for the future. Thank you so much to all of the esteemed speakers.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Sujata. It was a pleasure interacting with you, Anirudh.
Thank you, Sujata.
Thank you, Sujata.
Thank you so much.
Nice
So
to
this
be
is
here.
Creating Values Cubinar Fridays signing off for today. Hope to see you again on 18th of December at 4 p.m.
Sure.
Thank you.